Well, it's that time again. Rimshots with Sean. I am here, part two with Jordan Ziff, my new buddy from the West Coast. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing awesome, man. How are you?
Great. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to connect some of the dots that we missed the last time. So I guess for starters, I had asked you, what you're up to. You said you didn't have a lot of dates coming up. You're doing a lot of writing. I'm assuming that's for an album or some sort of recording that you hope to get out there soon.
Yeah, so I mean, it's for my band Hot Crazy, and we're probably gonna mostly be putting out singles, and I imagine we'll put together an EP soon, but I really right now just am interested in putting out songs. So it's sometimes when you do EPs and stuff like that, or even an album, it's too much going into it and the packaging and the thought behind the whole thing. And for me, I actually just want to put out songs because I
Right.
think that that's kind of uh that's the cool thing to do. I just want people to hear like what we're up to all the time.
The question that I had for you, and I forgot to ask it, so I'm glad we're doing the part two. So, I mean, you've played with Marty, you play with Ratt, you're doing your own gig. You got another band that you're trying to put together. When you're playing with some of those, I guess I don't know if heavy hitters the right word, but we'll call them the name brand people. There's a certain thing in anything called momentum, and that means your name is out there, and somebody goes, "Oh, call Jordan, he's great for this gig." Do you it do you does it get to a spot if you get out of that kind of hamster wheel thing where the momentum kind of backs off and maybe you don't get those calls, or are you always kind of doing what you can to stay in people's minds?
I mean, I'm always getting calls to do random things here and there. I think, after you do stuff like that, I think people kind of remember, that you're a guitar player. So I think that it's whether I'm in the midst of doing it or I did that before, I think it's still kind of the same thing.
Right
You
on.
know?
Um, so and in terms of the scene, you had expressed last time that the scene was kind of I guess I don't know if robust was quite the word that we would use, but I mean it's active. There's some things going on. Is there kind of like a summer cycle that happens in Los Angeles for music, or is it just kind of all year round?
All year round. I mean, they're like the Whiskey and the Roxy are having shows constantly, and there's a ton of little venues here that are having shows every single weekend. So I don't know that there's a specific cycle because everyone wants to play here, and everyone that lives here wants to play here.
Yeah, I seem to see an awful lot of posts and different bands kind of they're making the trek there. With the whiskey in that place, would they still be like a pay to play or ticketed event sort of scenario when you go in that room?
I mean, I imagine I've never done a pay to play thing there, but I think they still do that. Yeah. So, like, if you're not one of the main bands of the night, I think people are still paying to play there. Yes. And sell tickets and all that stuff.
So, and in terms of crowds, now that everything's back, up here in Canada, there's been like this past weekend, for example, there was a few shows that took place that were great. I went and I saw Buck Cherry last Thursday night here at a local bar. It was packed. And thank you, Francis, for getting me tickets to that. He's become a good bud. Are the shows packing up out there, like in places like the Whiskey and those other clubs?
Yeah. I mean, as long as it's a cool band playing,
Yeah, yeah.
I to the Whiskey on some off nights where there's like 15 people in there. So, it just depends. But yeah, dude, people are going out. People love it.
And give my viewers a sense of, because like I lived in Toronto for 7 years, and Toronto's one of those cities where the guy sweeping the floor will tell you suck if he thinks you suck. Like everybody's got an attitude, right? They all had in the day all had long hair and they all dressed like they were David Lee Roth, but they might not even be musicians. What's the scene like there in terms of that? Is it kind of is it welcoming? Is it competitive? How does it work?
Competitive. I mean, I think no matter where you go, it's kind of a little bit competitive, but it depends on who you ask and who you hang out with. But yeah, dude, there's a lot of rock people, and you still see people who like dress to the nines, and they're probably kind of have nothing much to really offer, but they're kind of acting like they do, you
They're
know.
very politically correct answer. I like that. I like that. So talk about Hot Crazy here for a couple of minutes. So the last time we chatted, you would kind of let everybody know it was kind of a Queen-esque type band.
Yeah.
Remind my viewers again, how many piece band is that? What's going on right now with that operation?
Yeah, so it's a four-piece band, and we actually just brought a new drummer into the band as a full member because honestly, this whole time we've been doing it, uh, me and my singer and my bass player were like, the band members, and a friend of mine was basically a drummer for hire. And very recently, another friend of mine kind of wanted to come in and be a full-time member of the band. So his name's Kyle Abbott, and he's amazing. And I'm really stoked about it because uh it's just great to have like four people that are all in that same, mindset as opposed to like not four, like having three people. But yeah, dude, it's such a great band, and everyone in the band is so much fun. It's just such uh, a party band, really. Like if you come to our shows, it's about having lots of fun and just having a really good time. So
I think too, right now, and I don't know what it is, but it just seems like the type of music that you're doing and the heavier music just seems that people want to hear it. If you look at the success of those extreme tunes that have been coming out, where everybody talks about, oh my God, it's so good to hear guitar again. It's so good to hear rock music again. Do you think the timing for you guys might be really good to get some of this stuff out there and have some success with it?
yeah, totally. Because like we talked about last time, I think that the climate for music is kind of everything is cool again. And I really enjoy this band because just the amount of vocal harmonies with guitars, it's just like really super over the top. And it's kind of like the band that I wish existed that I could hear on the radio or something, but that was kind of the whole idea to put it together because it's just something, when you make a band, it's you're doing something that you want to hear, right? Yep. But with this band, I did it with the thought of, if I really want to hear this, I imagine that there's a lot of other people that would love to hear that too.
Yeah, and I think that like those days of like the vocals and all kinds of vocals. I mean, I always grew up loving vocal bands like, Styx and Journey and REO Speedwagon, where you sit there and you hear them sing, and it's like there's no backing tracks. They're all doing it. And it's like if you don't do it, man, you're like that chair that's the three-legged chair, right? They're figuring out how to either get you out of there or figure out how to let you sing or make you sing.
Right. So, that was the other thing with this band is if you listen to our songs, it's me and my singer are recording tons of harmonies on the songs, but live, me and him are the only singers in the band. So, and I'm the kind of guy that, I kind of refuse to do vocal tracks or anything like that. Now, sure, live, there are some songs where we're doing like piano tracks or little synth things here and there because and my singer plays piano, but a lot of our songs have piano on it, so I don't really want him to be sitting at the piano for all those songs. So that's really the only reason we use tracks, is kind of out of that necessity. But the new drummer that came into the band is a singer as well. So now live we're gonna be able to do 3-part harmony stuff, and on the record there's shit that's like 4-part harmony and stuff, but it's always just been me and my singer doing all the vocals live. So I'm really excited for this kind of new version of the band.
Good stuff. We're going to take a little break. We're going to pay some bills. We're going to be back with Jordan Ziff after this. Welcome back to Rimshots with Sean. I'm here with Jordan Ziff. And just before we broke in the last segment there, and you know what? Look, I'll throw it out there because it just seems like every other story that you see on a Blabbermouth or whatever, they talk about backing tracks, blah, blah, blah. It says if you use backing tracks, you sucker. Once and for all for you mentioned keyboards, but what's your kind of stance on them? I don't know that we've covered in any depth the last interview.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Like with backing tracks for certain people, like absolutely, it's totally necessary to create the atmosphere that's on the album if they're doing weird noises or whatever in like a million gang vocals and stuff. Like I get that that's kind of like a modern rock thing, and I honestly have no problem with it. Like it's totally fine. For me, it's just I want all the instruments that are up there not to be kind of doubled by the backing track. So what I'm saying is like, no, like, okay, like if you're playing guitar and then there's also like guitar backing tracks, I'm just kind of like, to me, that's kind of lame. And that's my opinion and whatever. And don't shoot me for saying that, anybody, or like singers that have the lead vocal, kind of doubled or something to kind of help them out through the show. And it's fine. I get it. Like some people have to do it and it makes the shows consistent. Um, I don't want to like ruffle anybody's feathers. It just comes down to like me personally. I really don't want to ever do goofy stuff like that because if I'm going to see a band live, I really appreciate the imperfection in it because if people make mistakes and stuff or whatever, they're just going for it. Like I love that. That's part of the fun of the live show. So I don't feel like live shows should be 100% polished. There should be a little bit of danger. I mean, all my favorite, there's so many like great. Let's just go like in the world of guitarists for a second. Like, there's so many great guitarists that are kind of flawless every night, but none of those people are actually my favorite guitar players. They're just like insanely consistent and technical. All my favorite, now let's like go not just guitar players, but all my favorite musicians have nights where you're like, what? Like that was not good. And it's the danger and like the inconsistency and the it's not a perfect thing.
I think about like some of those old Van Halen records, and one of the songs for me that always came to mind was Unchained, that first accent where Alex hits the accent, the bass kind of just plays through it. It's a clear flub, but they left it because it's got a certain energy to what's going on.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like if I record a song and there's little mistakes here and there, or just imperfections in the way that I played it, but I like that take and I just like the vibe that it's like I don't care. I'm not gonna go back and fix it because when I listen to it, I get joy out of going, yeah, I remember doing that. I remember hitting that note a little bit shitty. It's like there. It's like I remember it.
Well, sure, absolutely. Well, it's a your friend of mine, Chris Catero, set me up with Alan Niven. We interviewed Alan last week, and he was talking about the two flubs in Paradise City,
sure.
and on the drums, and it's just like, yeah, I can't. You don't think of them as flubs; they're just part of what you got to used to playing. But he talked about him doing a band for Slash because they were doing some benefit for firefighters, and Slash asked the drummer, "Hey, do you know where the two mistakes are?" I just thought that was so cool because it becomes not necessarily mistakes, but a part of the tune.
Yeah, that's it. And you if you were the one recording it and you hear it, it's just a memory. Like it's deeper ingrained in your soul when you don't fix things because you can remember kind of the entire thing. I don't know if that makes sense, but
It does because it's funny. I remember doing a recording a few years ago, and it was one little flub where there was toms in one part of the song. So what they decided to do was just take the toms out of the mix until the part was coming. So when they finally get the thing, they couldn't stop the toms from going way up in the mix. It's just the way that it was. And oh, that's a mistake. Yeah, I know it's a mistake. I know what happened, but it's not the end of the world. And people almost tried to like do this whole shame thing. It's like, no, it's cool. It annoyed me at first, but I really like it. You know what I mean?
yeah, I'm all about that stuff. Hearing if you listen to I'd love to think of a bunch of examples right now, but there's one that sticks out to me in the song, Let It Be, whatever take that they used. There's one chord that's like totally the wrong chord, and it's later in the song. It's like it's after the midpoint, but Paul hits the wrong chord on the piano for like a second, and it's like totally noticeable to me. And I just think but that's what it is. Like that still was the best take that they did. They all agreed this was the best take, and you can't go back and fix that shit.
I'd be interested to get your take on this because I've had this discussion with a few people, and so you were talking about doing some cover stuff, and so my thing when I've done covers is kind of like do a reasonable facsimile. If there's very sort of signature parts, make sure you get them. But I've always thought, for the most part, the take on the record was one of possibly 15 or 20 takes that day that happened to make it. So I've never been like, oh, I got to figure out when the drummer actually, drops a stick or whatever. What's your thoughts on that in terms of figuring that stuff out?
That actually kind of relates to everything for me because when I was playing in Ratt, I only had maybe I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks to learn all the music before we like did our first show. When it was kind of like, hey, like you're the dude. Our first show is in like 3 weeks. So it was something like that. But what I'm trying to say is when I'm learning all of this, like when you have to learn a lot of music at once, you listen to it and there's things that stick out to you, and those are generally going to be the things that stick out to other people. Okay. So it's important to me to hit all the things that people would like really notice if it wasn't there. But like when it comes to like fast guitar playing stuff, yes, like there's some stuff I'm going to play note for note because, whatever, it just registered with me really quickly that day. But a lot of things like it's funny when people are like, man, like you played Warren's stuff like really close to note for note. And it's like, first of all, every single time we played live, I was doing a little improvising every single night. I never played something the same way twice because I had no freaking clue what I played the night before. So what I'm saying is I remember all the things that stick out to me that I need to play, but then all the fast guitar playing stuff, I just kind of go into like my own flow because for a few reasons. For one, if I try to do someone else's flow, like the way they play fast, I'm not going to sound as good at it as they are, right? It's me kind of emulating somebody, and it's going to be a less good version of them. So you always need to kind of lay into your strengths and get the important parts, but then play stuff that's in your wheelhouse because that is how you are going to present it the best. Because when you play even someone else's songs, it's of course you're being respectful to the person that wrote it. Like that should be very high list of things that you need to do is be respectful to the person that wrote it. But you also need to present it to an audience as if you wrote it, right? Because if you're presenting it, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's the way I feel about it is you kind of present it like as if you wrote it. Like how would you kind of play it if you wrote it? Not completely change things, but how would you kind of play it more like you if you wrote it? Because then it's going to come off way more natural.
No, that does make sense. You know what? We're going to take a quick little break. I want to pick up on that on the flip side when we're back with Jordan Ziff after this. All right, so we're back with Jordan Ziff, and I have to mention subscribe if you like what you're seeing because these guys work hard and they take their time out to come and talk to me. So that's the best way to see more of them. So we were just sort of talking about I guess being true or being respectful of somebody else's music. So you get the Ratt gig, and I didn't ask you last time. So it was Stephen Piercy's birthday the other day. Happy birthday or belated birthday to Stephen. I'll mention that. What version, which group of guys were you with when you were playing with them?
So it was me, and it was Pete Holmes on drums from Black and Blue, and it was Juan on bass, and Steven and the other guitar player, this guy Chris Sanders. But the last like 5 or 6 shows I did with Ratt, my buddy Frankie played guitar, which was so much fun.
So that's cool. So in terms of you out there and you being respectful, how did you guys, I guess, because I mean, let's talk. Warren DeMartini was always the guy that kind of got the whatever, but I mean, Robin Crosby was a great player in his own right. How did you guys kind of split up those leads? Did you take one, you take the other? How did it work out?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's literally just like I played all of Warren's parts and he played all of Robin's parts. So it was just split up kind of how it was always done, you know?
And I'm glad you mentioned Pete Holmes because he was a guy when I was growing. I always liked his playing. He always had neat parts, and he was just always in a band that was just on the cusp of doing something, but never quite got there. But I always thought he was one of the key players of that time. So thanks for mentioning that. So you were saying on the break, and I won't go into all the stuff, but you talked about that a little bit, and it might have wound up on a site where you're coming across as cocky. And you didn't want it to be cocky, but I guess you've got a certain level of confidence. I mean, you wouldn't take these gigs if you weren't confident in your ability, correct?
I suppose, yeah. I would think so.
Right. So, I mean, I don't think it's cocky. I mean, like, I didn't see that other interview, but unfortunately, sometimes what happens when you do interviews on the internet, they're looking for that. You'll have 95% of something amazing. They look for that 5% that they try to, I guess, get you with. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is conversations like this are supposed to be positive, just end up being stupid and catty and dumb.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, I just think I find humor in it more than anything. I really could care less what anyone writes about me that's like their own opinion about me. It's an opinion.
Well, I will tell you. So when we were doing the first interview, so the night after, my band got together and rehearsed, and I went into the rehearsal and I said to my two guitar players, "Have you guys heard of Jordan Ziff?" And they're both like, "Absolutely." And they talked about some videos that you had posted or have posted over the years. And they were one of the guys was like, "Yeah, he's a throwback." Another guy's like, "Yeah, he's got the shred thing down." Basically, what they were saying was, you really seem to be aware of what came before you and what's going on right now. And I thought, if I could convey that to you, maybe it's a compliment.
Yeah, I mean, I love all the 80s stuff and I'm really more, I think, of a 70s guy, honestly. So it's always kind of funny that I I fell into it, but I ended up kind of running in the circles of all the 80s bands and stuff because I'm really more of like kind of like a 70s guy, but I guess I got a certain amount of facility on the guitar that I was able to play kind of whatever. So like when I was playing with Marty, like that's such a completely different thing than playing with Ratt. You have like rock guitar and like proggy 7 string, metal.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting thing. Like I'm very grateful that I've been able to do these different things that have been thrown at me that are they're challenging in their own way. But
So,
yes. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
so I was going to say, if you're a '70s guy, and I was to throw out, okay, who would be one or two of your biggest influences, like when you were coming up? They would be who?
Well, yeah, I mean my favorite guitar player of all time is Brian May, and
Oh,
and I think we talked about that, but I
we
don't
did.
even know. But also Tom Schultz from Boston. I'm just really into those types of melodies and the way that the guitar kind of sings, like the tonality of the guitar. I really love to make my guitar sing more than sound like a guitar. Like I enjoy that type of stuff more so than kind of, just like noodling on guitar.
It's funny you mentioned those two guys because I was doing a thing there as a drummer posting, my favorite guitar solos of all time, and one was Killer Queen, which I just think is sound wise and everything is just wicked. And then I think it was Peace of Mind, just only because it's not, it's just to your point, it sings. It's a very musical type solo when they play it.
Yeah, it's so musical, it's so melodic, it's so memorable,
Right.
right? Memorable and stylistic. Like to me, that's everything. Like throw all the technique away and just think about, okay, how can I write something that's memorable and stylistic to where if someone hears it, they could go, I think it's this guy playing. Because that like to do that with a voice it's a more obvious thing. Voices are more unique than someone plugging a piece of wood into an amplifier, but if you can figure out ways to be unique, I think that's like the most important thing to do as a musician.
Yeah, it's it's funny. I mean, I grew up a Kiss fan, as you can see. I said last time I did my part to put Gene and Paul's kids through school. But Ace is one of those guys where you wouldn't go, "Oh man, world's best guitar player," but you definitely know it's him when you hear one of his solos, right?
Sounds like him, and he looked cool. It's he had all the cool things going on for him.
Yeah. So I didn't ask you this last time. The band, and it's not a new band because you said you got together, I guess, shortly before we had all the world turn upside down. But the name Hot Crazy, where did that come from?
So there's a video on YouTube called "The Hot Crazy Matrix," and it's kind of funny because it's like talking about women, about like if they're fit, like it's just like a scale, and it's like if they're this hot, they're gonna be like this crazy. You know what I mean? So just talking about like the different levels of that. So I just thought that was hilarious. So it's literally that minus the word matrix.
Well, hey, sometimes those are some of the best band names that come together, right? When you just kind of happen on something like that. All right, so one last time, sir. We got to wrap it up. We got to get out of here. You probably get stuff to do. I don't know. How's the weather there today in Los Angeles? Is it nice to get out and do some stuff, or?
I haven't even been outside yet, to be honest.
My God, you said that the last time. It's not you don't crack the door up until about 3 or 4.
Yesterday was the 4th of July, so I was up a little bit late with some friends. So
Nice, nice. So where are my peeps going to find out more about Jordan Ziff? Certainly, we're promoting the heck out of you, but where are they going to find out more about you?
Yeah, just on my Instagram, my Jordan Ziff Instagram, Hot Crazy Band Instagram, and just we're always going to be posting about what's coming up.
And like we forgot last time, because I always like to give drummers the prompts. Kyle Abbott's the new drummer in that band.
Yes, he's great, man. So
Good stuff. Good seeing you again, my friend. We're going to keep in touch, and all the best.
Great seeing you, man.